I'm welcoming everyone here for this joyous occasion, actually, in the water industry. We have several partners here from around the country that are going to be talking to you in a few minutes as we celebrate the 2-year anniversary of the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act and a lot of the funding that is coming through the EPA to help water and wastewater utilities around the country. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being here in Tucson at this beautiful location, the Sweetwater Wetlands, constructed 25 years ago as a treatment wetlands for the city of Tucson's reclaimed water system. The water flowing here is highly treated water from the Pima County Agua Nueva facility that eventually goes through this wetlands to the south of me and into the aquifer for future generations of Tucsonans to use across this community. So without further ado, to get this event going, I'd like to introduce our first speaker today, who is here all the way from Washington, D.C. That is Radhika Fox. Radhika is the EPA Assistant Administrator for Water, and she's going to share a few words. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. How are you? Good morning. I'm just so thrilled to join all of you today with my dear friend Martha Guzman. Martha is our regional administrator for Region 9 here, and as John and others know, when I was selected by President Biden to be the assistant administrator for water, I moved from California for the job. So anytime I'm in Region 9, I'm happy, but I knew Martha when she was in the governor's office and I was in California, and she's just such a wonderful champion for really all things environment. And so we're just so grateful, Martha, for your service as our Region 9 administrator. President Biden couldn't have made a better choice than selecting you for that role. So I've actually had the opportunity to be here for a couple of days here in Tucson for the One Water Summit, which Tucson Water has been co-hosting. It's actually my first time here in Tucson, and it is such a beautiful, beautiful community. And I have to say, since the moment that I stepped off the plane, I was really struck by how Tucson is such a living embodiment of One Water. From the Santa Cruz River Restoration Project outfall to the green stormwater infrastructure all across the city, to hear this beautiful setting of the Sweetwater Wetlands. You all are living with water. You're living on water. You're treating every drop of water here with the value that it deserves. So I just want to really thank you all for that. It's so important. So it's really wonderful to join you for today's announcement, which is related to PFAS in drinking water. So all over the country, people are hearing about PFAS. It's showing up in their drinking water, and they're wondering whether that water is safe to drink. PFAS is a class of compounds that are in a lot of the products that we touch each and every day, like non-stick cookware, water repellent jackets, and stain-resistant carpets. But as the science is changing, we are understanding that the cost of some of these conveniences is the health and well-being of the communities that we serve. So today I'm here to really congratulate Tucson Water for securing $30 million of President Biden's bipartisan infrastructure law funds through the state of Arizona to help protect the health and well-being of Tucson and Marana residents. With this funding, Tucson Water will ensure that customers don't have to worry if PFAS is in their water, as well as other emerging contaminants. So I want to thank you, Tucson Water, for your hard work and dedication. For the EPA, PFAS is a huge priority for us as an agency. In addition to my role as Assistant Administrator for Water, I also co-chair the Executive Council of PFAS for the agency. And we are really, across our 10 EPA regions and across all of our media offices, really bringing all of our statutory authority, partnerships, funding to help communities. We're focused on turning the tap off on PFAS, really restricting these chemicals, stopping them from getting into our air, water, and land in the first place. And I think Tucson knows better than maybe any community about once it gets into our air, land, and water, just how complicated and complex it is to get the PFAS out. And so I think we have to double down on restricting PFAS, and that's what we're doing. We're also focused on resources to help remediate when PFAS contamination exists, and frankly holding polluters accountable, those who have really done that contamination, and so increasing enforcement to hold polluters accountable so that other communities don't have to bear the cost of that. And we're also investing in building and deepening the scientific foundation and our scientific understanding of these chemicals. And I'm really proud to say that in just a few months, we will be also finalizing the first national drinking water standard for PFAS, which will, when final, save thousands of lives and prevent tens of thousands of illnesses. And I think what you all here in Tucson should know is that you're ahead of the game. Many communities are looking to the hard lessons you have learned in addressing this, and so you're truly a model for the nation in how you've addressed this. So finally, John mentioned this, but this is an incredible week to be here and to celebrate this announcement in Tucson, because it's the 2-year anniversary of the president signing the bipartisan infrastructure law, which has invested a historic $50 billion in water projects just like this all around the country. In the last 2 years, we've put about $13 billion to our state partners. It's funding about 2,600 local water projects just like this all around the country. And what I can say is we're still very much in the beginning of this cycle of investment. It's going to be a decade, an infrastructure decade, not only in water, but transportation, clean energy, and that's really the centerpiece of the president's Investing in America agenda. So again, I want to thank you so much for the opportunity to join you to celebrate Tucson Water's leadership, the partnership that they have with the state and EPA that has made this possible. And, just can't wait to be here for the groundbreaking, John.
Great. Thank you so much, Radhika, for those words. Next, I'd like to introduce our CEO and Director from the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality, Ms. Karen Peterson. Thank you.
Oh, goodness. Good morning. Oh dear, I have to move over a little bit. Okay, so I'm delighted to be at Tucson Water's Sweetwater Wetlands with you this morning. These wetlands are a beautiful example of water reuse in action and an important example of Tucson's proactive long-term water planning. I'm proud that we at ADEQ are working alongside EPA and the City of Tucson to preserve and protect the region's water supply and the quality of this watershed. We're here this morning to celebrate the investments in clean and safe water made possible by the bipartisan infrastructure law. And as we were discussing this earlier this morning, these investments are historic and game-changing, really things that we could not have done otherwise. So I'm so excited to celebrate this. We're helping Tucson and other communities on the front lines to safeguard our vital drinking water resources from industrial chemicals, including PFAS. The adverse effects of PFAS on human health and the environment are now well documented. ADEQ commends the essential work that EPA is doing to advance its PFAS strategic roadmap toward a clear and comprehensive regulatory framework. This is a framework that will be based in scientific evidence, achievable actions, and critical stakeholder input. It will establish clear standards for PFAS levels in our water, air, and soil. ADEQ really appreciates EPA's ongoing efforts and commitment to building this framework. For years now, ADEQ has worked proactively statewide, developing strategies and taking action to understand the potential impacts of PFAS in our communities and prevent further PFAS contamination. Our focus to date has been on protecting the quality of Arizona's drinking water supplies, working with regulated public water systems, and keeping communities informed. Here in Tucson, the state of Arizona and ADEQ have made significant investments with our partners in this work. At the Tucson International Airport Area Superfund site on Tucson's south side, we've granted $27 million, again made possible by federal investment, and expedited permitting to address PFAS impacts and support continued operation of the Tucson Airport Remediation Project, which is the Superfund groundwater cleanup remedy for that site, including funds to construct a state-of-the-art PFAS treatment system. ADQ is also dedicated more than $3 million of our state water quality assurance revolving funds and acted quickly to stop a PFAS plume from reaching Tucson Water's central well field. Excuse me. Within just 18 months, ADQ characterized the plume and built a demonstration treatment system that is limiting impacts to the city's water. We've sampled groundwater for PFAS across the region to help determine the extent of PFAS contamination, as well as eliminate direct impacts through private drinking water wells. While much progress has been made to mitigate the impacts of PFAS in Tucson and across the state, we know that this work is far from over. Addressing PFAS contamination in Arizona, requires a multifaceted approach that involves regulation, scientific research, and collaboration. The state of Arizona and ADEQ are committed to continuing this work with our federal and local partners to sustain the well-being and the economic vitality of the region today and for future generations. Thank you, and I'm so much celebrating these investments that made all this possible.
Thank you, Karen. So next we have a board member from the Arizona Water Infrastructure Finance Authority. We have Ms. Susan Montgomery. Thank you, Susan.
Well, thank you, John. I'm pleased to be here today on behalf of Arizona Water Infrastructure Finance Authority, really to celebrate with all of you these important investments that are being made here in Tucson to treat PFAS, provide drought resiliency, and support the environment. Today's celebration is really a great example of pairing innovative water projects like we see here, like we just saw, with funding resources made available under the bipartisan infrastructure law and other federal, state, and local sources. And on this note, I would thank Senator Sinema for her dedication to bringing water infrastructure resources to Arizona. WIFA is also proud of its long partnership with the EPA and have been able to tap into funding made available under the bipartisan infrastructure law to provide significant funding for this project that we were just looking at that will help provide safe and affordable water for Tucson families. And of course, WIFA's contributions to the project is only scratching the surface of the good work that the revolving funds make possible, both here in southern Arizona, throughout Arizona, and throughout the country. This week, in fact, was it yesterday? We celebrated the 1-year anniversary of what we call our revamped Water Infrastructure Finance Authority and our board. And I was reminded that WIFA has also made a commitment to emerging contaminant testing and remediation projects elsewhere in the state, including dedicating over $37 million in binding commitments for drinking water projects and over $630,000 in binding commitments for clean water projects. I'm happy to say that WIFA's efforts don't stop there, since we are also deploying $200 million in federal ARPA dollars to fund a wide range of water conservation projects across the entire state of Arizona and in every county of this state. With less than half of those conservation dollars awarded, we are already expecting at least 1.8 million acre-feet reduction in water use for conservation. These grants include $3 million for the city of Tucson to work on meters, and many more millions to assist communities, both large and small, across the state on conservation. Of course, all of these projects help ensure that Arizona's communities can deliver safe and affordable water to their residents. And WIFA is proud to be part of this, and we are grateful for the efforts of all of you who help keep water safe for all of us. Finally,
That was a party line.
okay, good. Well, and finally, I have to throw out a bone here to something from the old school days. I grew up in Tucson in the 70s and 80s, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention that my personal interest in water and water conservation, and I'm also a practicing water lawyer, started at a very young age. John may know where I'm going here. It started with a heavy influence from the Beat the Peak campaign, which was a campaign in the 70s and 80s that urged us all to conserve water back then even. And it was a very innovative campaign in the summer months. And there may be a few of you who even remember Pete the Beak, the duck, who, very cool, and we even had a video back in the 80s with Pete the Beak, the duck. So, anyways, and it was a cool video. You may recall it. Google it. I think you can still find it. Anyways, the point is that Tucson's been innovating on water for a long time. The types of partnerships we are celebrating today should help Tucson and other communities continue to innovate and be good stewards of our water supply, both now and hopefully well into the future. So I thank you, and it's an honor to be here, and thank you for the tour earlier. I learned a lot. So thank you very much.
Well, that was great, Susan. Yeah, going back to Pete the Beak. He still lives. He's about 50 years old. He does come out for special events and occasions. So just imagine a big yellow duck head and out there handing out conservation tips to our children across the community. All right. So next, she was not able to make it today. She had other commitments, but our Honorable Mayor, Regina Romero, wanted to be here if she could. Unfortunately, she couldn't, but she did send me some words to share with all of you, because she understands the importance of what we're doing at the national, at the state level, at the local level when it comes to safe water supplies. So this next message is from the Honorable Mayor Regina Romero. Buenos dias, welcome to Tucson. I am sorry I cannot join you this morning. I appreciate the statement being shared on my behalf. We are standing on the grounds that have been stewarded by the Tohono O'odham since the immemorial and the Pasquayaki for thousands of years. The investments made possible by the funding provided by the bipartisan infrastructure law are critical to Tucson. My colleagues on the Tucson City Council and I have made addressing this serious threat, the threat of emerging contaminants like PFAS, like 1,4-dioxane in the past, that threat, that contamination posed to the Tucson potable water supply, our top priority. Without safe, clean, accessible water, Tucson cannot thrive. It is important to understand the history and the specifics of groundwater contamination in Tucson to make clear how critical the BIL funding projects are to securing our water supply, supporting our local economy, and protecting public health. High PFAS levels have been detected in groundwater on Tucson's south side, a community that has already experienced the trauma of contamination of TCE and 1,4-dioxane. The significant focus on centering environmental justice efforts by the Biden-Harris administration is appreciated. Many residents developed various forms of cancer, heart ailments, and other diseases because of the TCE exposure. Neighbors and environmental justice groups rightfully demanded the cleanup of the water back then in what is now known as the Tucson Airport Remediation Plant, or the TARP Superfund site. The rising PFAS levels negatively impacted our drinking water aquifer that serves over 700,000 people. The closing of wells contaminated by PFAS throughout the water system places additional strains on a limited water supply here in southern Arizona, already impacted by long-term drought. As a closed basin system in an EPA-designated sole source aquifer, Tucson has no surface waters that can flush PFAS out of our basin. It makes Tucson that much more vulnerable to reduced water supplies due to PFAS contamination. We are also appreciative for the federal and regional EPA officials, especially Region 9 Administrator Guzman and EPA Assistant Administrator for Water, Mr. Fox, who are working with ADQ leadership to bring all of the affected parties to the table to develop and fund treatment and remediation actions. We are grateful to our congressional delegation and the Biden-Harris administration for making funding available through the bipartisan infrastructure law a priority, and for your visit today. Again, a thank you from Mayor Regina Romero. So the next person to speak is me, John Kamik, Director of Tucson Water. I just want to give you a little brief background of this first of what we hope will be many projects that will come to the Tucson area to addressing emerging contaminants like PFAS. So one of the first projects that we will be bringing on board as funding provided through our state Water Infrastructure Financing Authority, made available by the EPA through the bipartisan infrastructure law, as you've heard, is to bring back wells that we've had to turn off over the last several years on the northwest side of Tucson, just a couple miles north of here. So about 7-8 years ago, when we realized that PFAS contamination was pervasive through many areas of the Tucson community, we quickly tested all of our drinking water supply wells and identified over 28 of them that had to be turned off because they had varying levels of PFAS existing in them. So a series of wells just north of here, we're going to call the Northwest wells. They serve primarily northwest Tucson and southern Marana. We're going to be building an advanced treatment plant for the treatment of compounds like PFAS over the next couple of years, utilizing the funding that we're acquiring from this act today. That plan is estimated to be approximately $33 million in total, with more than $10.1 million of forgivable principal made available through the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act. So look for that coming in the future. What that'll do is that by having those wells come back into the Tucson Water portfolio through advanced treatment, we'll be able to recover 3.7 million gallons a day of potable drinking water that then can be returned to the northwest side of Tucson, where it's currently lost from our resiliency and our redundancy of our groundwater system. So thank you very much. I want to thank our partners for making this available, from the EPA, from ADEQ, who have been awesome partners over the years, Arizona WIFA working with us. But I also need to thank our congressional delegation, Senator Sinema, Senator Kelly, and all in the delegation in the House representing Arizona that understands the value and importance of Tucson and its groundwater system. This is our primary supply. This is our backbone, is the aquifer of Tucson and the Tucson Basin. Though we do receive Colorado River water through the CAP Canal, we turn that into groundwater, and that helps backstop our water supply in this community. But the foundation of this community is the Tucson aquifer of the Tucson Basin. So important projects like these and many others, we'll be asking for more in the future, is what's going to help protect this aquifer for future generations to come. So thank you very much. So I want to introduce next someone who is a local legend when it comes to water quality and the protection of our environment and the protection of the people who live in the community of Tucson in this part of southern Arizona. She's a dear friend of mine. I've gotten to know her over the years. And she is a great voice and a great advocate for the Tucson community. So I'd like to introduce for some remarks Miss Yolanda Herrera, our chair of the Tucson International Airport Superfund Site Unified Community Advisory Board. Yolanda.
I do not have a prepared speech. I speak from my heart. I'm very grateful for everything that's transpiring today. Sitting here by this water reminds me of growing up. I'm fifth generation, by the way. My family's been here since the 1850s. Water has always been a part of our life growing up. Daddy used to take us to the Marana canals for picnics so we can kind of enjoy the water. So this is why it's so moving for me to remember my dad and my mom. We've been working on the contaminated water since 1981 when my dad first discovered the sicknesses happening in our neighbors. We had a well at the end of the street that was shut down. Being a fifth generation, I am concerned about my seventh generation, my grandkids. We want to make sure that they do have safe, secure water for their children and their children's children. So I totally, really appreciate all the positive, proactive activities that are currently transpiring. I thank you all from the bottom. I'm not going to say from the bottom of my heart. I'm going to say from the top of my heart. When I get dressed, I think about what I'm going to wear, what I'm going to be representing. This is why I have shades of blue, because it is all about water, because water is life. So thank you very much.
So that concludes the formal remarks that we're making. I'm going to turn the podium over to Miss Natalie DeRook, the Senior Public Information Official for Tucson Water, and she's going to help guide the media. Thank you.
Right. Well, I'd like to thank everybody who's here today, especially our water leadership, national, regional, state, and local and community members, of course. Thank you very much.